Okay, good evening. So we can proceed from where we ended yesterday. Yesterday we started looking at the concepts that underpins monitoring and evaluation. I did share the notes and I'm sure we managed to see the notes, right? You haven't seen the notes? Mr. Emmanuel? Possibly she's not in the group, she didn't see the notes. She's not managed to watch. Who else did not see the notes? Did you send me second? And I didn't send you anything. Try to send me WhatsApp. WhatsApp message. Did you send to the man on your own? Say, I have it. Yes, you have to send it to me. So my number is also not. Samana. It's now okay. So should we proceed? And for me, I would prefer if you can be asking as many questions as possible so that as we are trying to go through this, right, we should make it practical rather than picking it from the theoretical point of view. If we take this course from the practical point of view, it will be very interesting. Even by the time we'll be finishing this course, you'll be able to go and apply monitoring and evaluation in the projects that you are going to be doing. The others who are running the projects, you'll be able to go and apply the monitoring and evaluation concepts and the frameworks that we are going to cover. So yesterday we started with planning, just to understand what planning is all about. We did define what planning is. We also looked at the approaches that we can use to planning. We have the top-down approach, then we have the bottom-up approach. Then depending on the situation, there's a point where we can merge the two. So we are going to proceed with this slide. We had already started with this slide. Who can remember what we discussed from this slide? Who can remember what was the first thing that we looked at yesterday? Are you able to see this slide? Oh, okay. Even that side you can see. You can see. Oh, okay. So these are the concepts, these are the major concepts that underpins this course. We are going to be looking at what monitoring is. Then we'll look at what evaluation is in detail. Then we're also going to look at that important thing, which is M&E system. Then we are also going to look at the M&E plan, which anchors everything about M&E. Then there's also these things called frameworks and their indicators. I just opted in, then I heard Mr. Kennedy talking about the indicators, right? I know there might be cumbersome when it comes to developing the indicators and how to calculate them, but we need these indicators. Indicators will be speaking to us. Then possibly we'll look at the data and the quality of data, then the baseline, then how we are going to be reporting. So we looked at this. The major reason why we should embed M&E in our projects, in our institutions, just we want to improve our program performance. We want to know who is responsible for what. It's talking about accountability. Then of course we need to give feedback to the people that are giving us the money, to the people that are funding our projects. We need to tell them where we are, that this is where we stand, so that they make a decision whether or not to continue giving us money. And of course, for them to continue giving us the money to depend on what we've achieved at this particular point in time. And often people tend to twist the results so that they continue receiving the money, right? And that's why for evaluation, when we start looking at the difference between monitoring and evaluation, you see that evaluation usually is done by external people. Because if you put in internal people, it's likely that they will twist the things so that the institution will continue receiving the money. But if an external evaluator comes in, imagine your project is being done in Zambia, then you receive an evaluator from UK. They don't know you, then it means there will be objectivity in whatever that they are going to be doing. If you did not achieve so much as a project, they will go on to report what they have seen on the ground. So that's monitoring. I believe that we discussed this yesterday, that monitoring just entails the routine collection of data about whatever that we are doing. Then there is a full definition of what monitoring is. Then we went a little bit in details just to look at the questions, some of the questions that can be used for you to track whatever that you are doing. You are going to be looking at the resources. Are you receiving the resources on time? Then we're also going to be looking at the activities. Are the activities being conducted according to time and budget? You also look at the quality of service that you are administering to the people in the community. Then you're also going to be looking at are the outputs being produced. And yesterday we discussed what an output is, just partially, but we'll discuss further in details what an output is. Then we also covered this part, right? The question is, what is being monitored? What exactly are we supposed to monitor? We are just talking about monitoring, and monitoring being that continuous process of us gathering the data about the activities that we are doing. But the question is, what exactly are we supposed to monitor? So here there is a change where you start at inputs. Once you have the resources once you have the resources, it could be in monetary terms, it could be human capital, it could be facilities, it could be vehicles. All those are inputs that now make it easy for you to do the activities. So once you've gathered your resources, the next stage now will be for you to start conducting your activities. There is an example, facility construction, that's an activity. Then you'll be doing some form of trainings. Then once you've done your activity, the immediate results that you should be able to see is called an output. Then beyond an output, you have now what is called an outcome. Beyond an outcome, now it goes into what is called impact. In fact, impact is something now which you had set as your goal. It's the final thing. Are we together? So these things has got 5 things. You start at inputs, activities, outputs, outcome, and impact. Then monitoring ends at output A. So you monitor your inputs, you're also going to monitor your activities, then you're also going to monitor your outputs. Then it ends here. What comes thereafter, you do not have much autonomy. You have less control. Like I was giving an example yesterday. If your activity was to distribute condoms, right? So you've done condom distributions. Your output will be that people have condoms, right? But an outcome will be that people should use the condoms. So you can imagine how complicated it becomes at output level, because you can't go in the houses and force people, can you please use the condoms? No. It doesn't depend on you. It depends on them. Depending on the information you administer to them, then they will make a choice whether or not to use such a service. So your control as a project, your control as a project, it will end basically on the outputs. Whatever that will come, it will depend on whatever that you do. People will decide whether or not they will use that service and sustain that service in terms of utilization. Depending on how you gave them the service, possibly if they don't like it, maybe they'll just use it the very day you've given it to them, then they will throw it away. So it becomes quite complicated. No wonder, even now when you start developing indicators, you see that starting at inputs and outputs, you can even have up to 10 to 15 indicators, but as you move down, the lesser the indicators that you are going to have, because going forward it becomes very complicated. Even measuring it becomes very complicated. For example, if let's say our impact, or rather the goal is to reduce HIV prevalence. Now, you've been administering the service to, let's use Zambia let's just use Zambia in general. Let's say your main goal is to reduce HIV prevalence. Then after 3 years, you want to measure where you stand in terms of HIV prevalence. So there then it means you need to do a population survey where you're going to capture everyone in Zambia. When you look at that, it means it will be a study that will be complex. You need more and more resources. No wonder why from this level we even reduce the indicators. The more we have the indicators beyond the output, then the more we need to have resources for us to measure those indicators. Remember, when it comes to measuring indicators, you need to have data that you're going to be using, right? For indicators that falls at each level, already here you can have, let's count the people that you have in the project. It's very easy. Then you can also look at the resources that you have. It's very easy. When you go at outputs here, it's very easy to look at the goals that you construct. You can just go there and count them and take a picture. Then you can report on that particular indicator. When it comes here, where you are doing some form of training, you can just count the total number of people that have been trained. As simple as that. Now, think about going to an outcome. How are you going to capture and be sure that this person using the condom? It's very difficult, right? So you need now to have well-designed studies that will capture everything. And for such studies, now you need also to start looking at the validity and reliability of the data that you are going to have. So it's quite complex. No wonder we reduce indicators beyond the outputs. Then the question would be, why should we then monitor whatever that we are doing? Can we please discuss just for about 2 minutes? Why should we monitor whatever that we are doing as a project? Why should we monitor our resources? Why should we monitor our activities? And why should, yes sir? Stays on track, right? So we want to strengthen that continuous collection of data just to be sure that we are not derailed, right? We should maintain the pathway of that project. We should be moving in line with whatever that we have put in our plan. But otherwise, if we move away, then it's highly likely that we may not achieve our goal at the end of the day. So we need to be moving straight according to plan. This side, sister wanted to say something. I saw your hand. Yes, sister. For accountability, we need to know who is doing what, when are they doing it, where exactly, right? All those things are supposed to be answered. Remember yesterday, as I said that prior to 1945, before the World War II, the American government, they used to pump in billions of dollars into military operations. But the question that remained was, these people, they never used to see significant results coming from the money. So they needed something that can speak to them in terms of efficiency, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of coherence, in terms of relevance, and hence monitoring and evaluation. So as we begin to discuss this monitoring and evaluation, we should be able to understand that monitoring and evaluation is something that we are going to put in the project, as something that is going to help us know whether or not we are making progress. Are we together? So if we are making progress, then well and good, we just continue. If we are not making progress, we need to know where exactly are we not doing it okay. So that if we are able to identify where an error is being made, then we can correct it and move forward. Are we together? That's the whole essence of us having monitoring and evaluation. So they are putting bullets, what gets monitored is more likely to get done. If you don't monitor performance, you can't tell success from failure, right? If you can't see success, you can't reward it. If you can't see that you are making a mistake somewhere or you failed somewhere, you can't correct it. You just keep on making such a mistake, right? So this is there to help us to identify, are we making errors? If we are not making errors, then we should be able to see the results, right? We can't assume that we are not making errors when we are not seeing the results. We must see the results. Then from there, we can confidently say we are making progress. But if we are not seeing the results, then we should be worried, especially for those of you that are going to be program managers, because you'll be accounted for by the funders. Why are you not producing results as a program, as a project? So monitoring and evaluation will help you do that. If you can't demonstrate results, you can't sustain support for your actions. So those are just simple reasons why we should monitor the inputs, we should monitor the activities, why we should monitor our outputs. Any questions? Any questions? Are we moving together? Should I proceed? Okay. These concepts will come when we proceed. Uses of information generated by monitoring. Day-to-day management decision making to improve program performance and ensure that resources are being used according to plan. I think that's taking us to what we are from discussing, right? Then accountability, we've talked about accountability. Then there's advocacy. How can we justify that point? Basis of the monitoring data that we have, how can we use that data for advocacy? So it means if we have data speaking to us about the progress, it means we can use the same information to go and lobby for more and more resources, right? We can even use the same information that we have to speak on behalf of the people. No, in this community, indeed they really need this service, but this project alone, we can't achieve that much. Hence, there is need for more and more interventions, right? Because you've got the data from the ground which is speaking to you. Then input to evaluation. I did mention yesterday that without the data that you collect for monitoring, without you monitoring your activities, then it's practically impossible for you to come and evaluate. Because monitoring, we are talking about a routine or a continuous collection of data about whatever that we are doing on a daily basis, starting from the inputs, the activities, and the outputs. So such information will serve as a benchmark for you to come and do your evaluation. In fact, evaluation is supposed to be based on whatever that you've done, not in future, not looking at what you do in future. No, it looks at what you've done. You want to assess. Are we together? So those are the 4 uses of the information that you generate from monitoring. Then what is evaluation? Let's discuss. We talked about so much about evaluation. We are still looking at the concepts. How can we define evaluation? Who can give it a try? Sir, you wanted to say something, right? You can proceed, sir. Like there is no wrong answer at this stage, right? Yes, sir. Sorry? Advocacy. So, number 4, input to evaluation, right? Now, this is just monitoring. So, there are 2 things here. There is monitoring aspect and there is the evaluation aspect. So, what starts first is monitoring before you can evaluate. Now, you can proceed with the questions. Yes. Okay, exactly. So, he's asking that monitoring becomes an input to evaluation, right? So, remember, evaluation looks at what has been done, right? The here in monitoring, we are saying the continuous or rather a routine process of collecting data over the activities, including the resources that you have, and also looking at the outputs, right? In other words, you'll be collecting this information and just putting it somewhere, right? So that information is now what we are saying that monitoring hence becomes an input for evaluation. The same information that we are going to be collecting at a point when we are doing the implementation of the project. When I mean at the implementation of the project, that's where monitoring happens. As we are doing things, we are recording. How many people have been trained today? 20. How many people received this service? 30. The same information that we are collecting is the information that we are now going to use to evaluate what we did, let's say, for the past 2 years. Are we together? So that's what happens, Mr. Shamta. Without you having such information, then you can't evaluate. Where are you going to get information? How are you going to know that 20 people were trained? You can only know if someone has given you record somewhere that this is where we have recorded 20 people attended the training session. And hence, monitoring becomes an input for evaluation. Without monitoring, evaluation can never happen. And that's why these two concepts, they go in hand. More you monitor whatever that you are doing, then you come and evaluate whatever that you did. And that's why evaluation looks back. Monitoring is in the future. Whatever that you are going to do tomorrow, once you do it, you record. You keep the information. Whatever you are going to do on Thursday or Wednesday, record the information. Then someone who is going to evaluate whatever that you are doing, they will pick the same records. They'll start looking at the records, starting from the inputs. How have you been using resources? Which people do you have in the project? Are these people trained? Which facilities do you have? Which vehicles are you using for you to go to Vubu to administer the service? All those things will help you to achieve your goal. We need to look at the resources that you have. We need to also assess the human resource, because we know that human resource is very key. Yesterday I was giving an example. It is possible if I plan to go and do a sensitization campaign in Michibolia, for example, instead of me picking well-trained people, but because I know that paying them it will be very expensive, I'll go to town and just pick the cadres in town and take them to Chibolia. They go and make noise and pay them 100 kwacha. So all those things that we are doing will determine whether or not we achieve our goal. So we need to come and measure. Did we include the right people at the right time in this project? Did we receive the resources on time? How have we been allocating the resources? Did we follow the budget? Are we together? So that's what happens, Mr. Shamita. Hence, the information that you collect as you are doing monitoring becomes the basis for evaluation. Without such information, you can never conduct evaluation. It's practically impossible. We need such information. Yeah, it can tell you. So I don't want to go in much into details because evaluation now just goes, it also goes beyond just the information that you collect under monitoring, because you need also to include the very people that were receiving the service. You also need to interview them. To this site, you are going to do a secondary study, if I can put it that way. Secondary study means you've got information readily available somewhere. Are we together? Then primary study now is when now you go into the community, start asking them, oh, did you receive this service? Yes. How many times? Okay, this. Have you benefited from this service? Are you able to explain how this particular service has impacted you? Then they tell you, then from there, you can come and marry the two and then produce the report and be able to tell that indeed this service impacted the target population. Yes, madam. Mm-hmm. Yes. For evaluation. Mm-hmm. So now, how to get the output in the data? Okay. Exactly. So, what am I going is on? Okay. So, an output, I was saying that an output is the immediate result of you doing something. So, if I've distributed the condom, if my activity was to conduct trainings, right? That's my activity. So let me assume that I've done this particular activity. Then my output will be that people have been trained. Something that even now here, my output will be that I explained what I mean. my output would be that if I use this particular slide, I would say I explained what should be monitored in a project. That's what my output will be. It's that very thing that I should be able to see right away after doing an activity. So if I go back to the example that I've been using, the condom distribution. If I've given people the condoms, what could be my output? People have received condoms. Something that I can see because I've given it to him. Are we together? So that thing you are able to see just through collecting data. You don't need the evaluation for you to see an output. The evaluation usually comes in when you're doing it with an outcome, because an outcome deals with a change in behavior of people. It's something that you can't see in 2 days. It's something that you can't see in 3 days. It's something possibly that you can start seeing after 6 months. Then impact is now that overall thing that your project has contributed in the well-being of people. So let me not go into details because we are still coming back to evaluation where we are able to distinguish them properly than at this stage, because I might give you everything before we even reach to evaluation. So we can reserve that question, madam, right? So we've looked at this. Then let's try to define what evaluation is. So you wanted to say something. What do we think evaluation is? Yes, sister. To ascertain the measure past activities. Okay. Wonderful. So she's talking about a very important component. Analysis, right? I'll keep it that way. Sir, you want to say something? I'll see your one is coming. No, go. Okay, yes. Yes.
Evaluation is measuring the activities achieved against the set goals.
Wonderful. Is he added something again? Measuring what we've achieved against what was planned, right? Doing the analysis of whatever that we had put in our plan against what we've achieved. We want to do a comparison. If we had said we are going to train 40 people, did we train 40 people? If we say we trained 30, we should be able to explain this variance in between, right? I've seen the hand there, sir. Okay. Sorry? Of the project as delivered, right? So you want to ascertain the value, or rather the contribution your project has made to the target population, right? Okay, exactly. We'll still come back when we start looking at the cost-benefit analysis and the cost-effectiveness analysis, and also looking at efficiency, because the effectiveness and efficiency is supposed to be balanced in the project. And when you talk about efficiency, you're talking about minimization of usage of resources, whilst we are attaining optimal results, right? Exactly. So we need to strike a balance between effectiveness, which talks about seeing the results timely, and also there must be a balance in terms of resources. If we are very stingy in terms of resources, it's possible that we may not see the results, right? But again, if we are just focused on the results, we are not looking at the resources. By the time, even before we finish the project, we might go bankrupt as a project. So we must strike a balance between effectiveness and efficiency. So that's the definition for evaluation. But for me, the definition that I like most is this definition which is there, which is talking about the systematic assessment, which is she talked about the analysis. She talked about analysis, which is that point which is there. The assessment here, the only thing which has been added is systematic. So we are going to dissect what this definition entails. Systematic assessment of the operation or outcome of the project or program according to implicit or explicit standards as a way of contributing to the improvement of the program. So here now, the definition here has been accepted. When you look at systematic assessment, it tells that evaluation is supposed to be conducted according to social research procedures. I know that most of you, possibly beyond 2/3 of this population present here, you will have done some form of research. And in research, there are certain things that are supposed to be followed for us to be able even to generalize your findings to the entire population. And something which is very key in your research is when you start looking at your methodology. You need to tell us the study design. Is it going to be a case report? Is it going to be a case series? Is it going to be a case study? Is it going to be a case control study? Is it going to be a cohort study? Is it going to be an ecological study? Is it going to be a randomized control trial? All those things are very important. Then you need to tell us how are you going to gather your sample. Because something that is very important is how you sample. So there are methods that you can use. There is a probability sampling where you are giving each and every unit in your sampling frame an equal chance of being part and parcel of your study. Then there is also non-probability where not everyone has got the same chance. Then under probability, you've got now the breakdown of methods that you can use. There is the most abused method, which is simple random sampling. You've got the multi-state sampling, you've got the multi-phase sampling. Then under the non-probability sampling, you've got snowball sampling, you've got convenience sampling, you've got the positive sampling. So all those things that we are doing evaluation. Evaluation is more like just a study, and we must specify the methodologies. And the methodology is something that anchors any research. For you to be able to generalize your results to the entire population, people involved with the benefited from this particular service administered by this particular project will be dependent on the design of the study, especially on the methodology. Then because we are also going to be dealing with people, ethics are very important here. We need to protect, we must assure the respondents that there will be privacy, there will be this and this and this. So that's what this point means. Systematic assessment means we must conduct this evaluation according to social research procedures. Then the second point is talking about operational outcome. So evaluation may concentrate either on the process, the way the program is being conducted, or the effect of the program for its intended beneficiary. There are times where you just want specifically to look at the impact your project has made on the well-being of your you may just concentrate on the benefits this project has delivered to your target population. So you can choose what you want to focus on. Possibly sometimes you might wish to say, okay, let's just look at how we administer this service. You as an evaluator, you are not concerned about the benefits. The only thing that you are concerned about is the process, how the service was being administered. Then from there, depending on how you design your study, basis of the information that you are going to get, if the process was okay, then you can assume that the people have benefited. Then there are times where you are saying, no, me, I'm not looking at the process, I'm not concerned about whatever that happened, me, I'm just concerned about the benefits, the end benefits of this project administered in this service. You don't care about the resources that the project used, you don't care about the activities that were conducted, you don't care about the human resource that was involved in that particular project. The whole thing that you care about are the end results, the benefits to the target population. So you are going to agree as an institution, depending on what you need. Remember, evaluation is not just an end. You want evaluation to see the results so that you can use those results as an institution. And evaluation is quite expensive. So you need to be very careful. You need to decide before you can move on to do the evaluation. Okay, our major focus as a project is just looking at the benefits to the target population so that you don't waste much resources where you look at the process and you look at the benefits you might spend quite a lot. So you are going to decide if you've got money, like you've got enough money, then there's no problem. You can look at both. You can look at how the service was administered, and also you can look at the benefits, right? Then if you look at the benefits, who are we going to target here? If we want to look at the benefits, who are we going to target during evaluation? Who can we target during evaluation? If we are looking at the benefits, we are going to target the beneficiaries, right? And if we are looking at the process, who can we target? The people that were administering that service, right? And also, we can also include the beneficiaries, because we need to ask them how many times were you receiving the service, right? Exactly. The standards of comparison, and this is what we talked about, right? Assess the merit or weight of the program by comparing the evidence to set expectations, right? So in the plan, we are going to put, like I was demonstrating yesterday here, let's say you did your baseline survey, right? Then you discover that the HIV prevalence stands at 14.2. As of 5th November 2019, HIV prevalence stands at 14.2%. Okay, well and good. We know this value. Then we now start administering the service. Let's say we said we are going to do a midterm evaluation. So let's assume that our project will run for 5 years, right? Then when we say a midterm evaluation, that means we'll do it after 2.5 years, right? Exactly. Then from there, let's say in our plan we are going to put after 2 years, this prevalence should be reduced to let's say 10%. 10%, right? Then now we've done the evaluation now, the midterm evaluation now, the value is 11%, right? Then from there you can be able to relate what we've achieved, which is the evidence we talked about there, to what we had planned to achieve. Then we should be able to explain the difference. Why have we not achieved our target, which was 10? Are we together? So that particular difference is supposed to be explained. If the difference, for example, let's say you had 14 there, right? Then what you've achieved is now, you had 14.2. Then after 2.5 years, your target was 10, right? Then now, what you have now is 14%. Would you say you've succeeded or not? Definitely not, because the difference from what you've achieved and what you have said is quite big, right? But if you stand at 11, at least you can be able to account for that 1% difference. Are we together? So that's what this point means here. Evaluation looks at what you have put in your plan, then relate it to the evidence that you have now, the actual evidence, what you've achieved. That's what evaluation is. Then the last point here, it combines now everything that you have here now just for you to use now the results that you have to improve program performance. You are going to discover mistakes that were made. You are going to discover where you did not do it well. Then from there you are going to make amendments, or rather you are going to come up with new ways of you administering the service so that you can improve program performance. And that's what evaluation entails. 10 questions on evaluation. 10 questions. Should I proceed? Types of evaluation, like you are going to be, there's so much. There's a front-end analysis, which is a baseline evaluation, which we talked about, right? So a baseline, that's that you be proud of the implementation of the project. You want to know what is on the ground first. And you are going to use what you've discovered to be on your ground now to put it in your plan, and also set your targets. Okay, from 14.2, I think if we can do this and this and this particular value or indicator can be reduced to this. Are we together? Because it's difficult if you don't have something to start with. How are you going to set your targets? It's quite difficult, right? You can't just say, we know that there's HIV prevalence, but we don't know HIV prevalence. We don't know where it stands. How are we going to set a target? Should we say we reduce HIV prevalence to 60%? When it's at 14%, then we put it at this. It doesn't make sense, right? That's why we need this baseline study before we can start the implementation. Then there is that thing, the second bullet, then there's a formative evaluation. Other people, they say formative evaluation is now equivalent to monitoring. Then there is the mid-term evaluation. Just by the way, this of mid-term, there's something that you do in the middle of the project, just for you to measure what you've done. If you haven't achieved so much, you go back to the drawing board so that you can come up with new strategies. Then there's impact or outcome evaluations. That's where there is work here. That's where there is work. Outcome and impact. Because at this stage, you don't have much control. Whatever that happens here would depend on the service that you are administering, and it will be the choice of those target population. I mean, it will depend on the target population, either to use your service and sustain it or not. The only thing that you can do is to give them the service, and then they make a choice whether or not they stop smoking. It's almost impossible to force someone to stop smoking. They have to make a decision on their own. The only thing that I can do to them is just give them information. No, smoking will lead to lung cancer, smoking this and this and this. And if I invite the police officers, they come and whip and whip. If they are not willing to avert smoking, definitely they will continue smoking. So the only thing that I can do is give them information. Then from there they will decide. No wonder I was saying, at outcome and impact, we do not have much control as a project. Then there is summative evaluation there. It means it's something that you do once you've done the implementation. Yes, sir. Sorry? On which bullet? Formative evaluation. Sorry? These two saying preliminary evaluation conducted around a form of evaluation. So it's more like even before you do a research, for example, right? You say we are going to do a pilot study, right? The pilot study means we want to test our questionnaire. Is it measuring what it's supposed to measure? Even here in evaluation, because we are going to design the questions. So it means we can just do a partial evaluation. Before now we can conduct the main evaluation. We just want to know, are the questions that we put in this interview guide capturing what it's supposed to capture? So that's what it means there. Then the second bullet, you are talking about this, right? So this one is saying developmental process-oriented evaluation, which provides guidance to programs activity. This is the type of evaluation conducted to provide feedback to people who are trying to improve something. So this formative evaluation, as I was saying, in some literature, you just put monitoring. Others, they'll say process evaluation. Process evaluation, when I take you back to this particular bullet, you're just talking about that evaluation sometimes may just concentrate on the process. How are we doing things? And for this one, it's even possible to do it after 2 days. You want to look at what you've done in the past 2 days. And that's what the formative evaluation there in terms of just focuses on the process. And the process, that means we are looking at the resources that we have. We have much resources for us to administer this service. Who is being engaged to administer this particular service? Which facilities are we using for us to administer this service? Pretty much just about how the implementation is being done. That's what this particular bullet is formative evaluation. You look at the process, you look at how you are administering the service. And for this one, it's also possible that within the team you can even do it. No wonder, in as much as we can engage people from outside to come and do the evaluation, basically for this to impact and outcome, that's where engagement of the external evaluators is very important. But for this one, you don't need the external evaluators. But also for this particular bullet here, where you do a preliminary evaluation conducted part of study, even the external evaluators, they may wish to test the questions that they have put in their interview guide. But for this one, you don't necessarily need them. You can even do it internally. Just it's more like let me use an example of auditing, right? There are institutions where they have got is it internal audit what? Who can help me? They call what? Internal what? For those that are in auditing, do I have anyone who is coming from the auditing firms or institutions? Sorry, internal auditors, right? So the major reason why you are supposed to have internal auditors is just these people to remind you that actually you are not following the process before you can invite people from outside, so that before those they come, you can make adjustments. Even here, you can even do it internally, so that before you can engage external evaluators, you would have already made the corrections to whatever you deemed to be inappropriate. You wanted to ask a question? Yes. It's very close. Very close. That's the closest to monitoring. That's why I'm saying in some literature you put property evaluation. Other books will say closest evaluation. Then other books will just put monitoring. So this one will just speak about the process. How are we administering the service? Who have we engaged? How much have we used? So these are more just like internal checks. You want to see here you overspent here, so you need now to adjust it so that you meet the targets. So that before you can invite in the because for external evaluators, they don't know you. Whatever they are going to find is what they are going to report. And once the funders they receive the money that you did not follow the process, they will cut off the funding. So it means you cannot move on now as a project. Sir, have you understood something? Okay. Then summative evaluation, just from the word is this evaluation that you conduct at the end of the project, you finished the implementation, then they are depending on the problem that you are trying to address. And because you know that even after completing the project, you may not necessarily see the results. So you can agree to say, okay, after finishing the implementation, we are going to give it 2 years and we are going to go into the ground and collect data and see whether or not the service that we administer to people benefited the target population. So, yes, this one can also now, it can also look at outcome and then it will also look at the impact. Then when you look at evaluation, there are types of studies that you need to conduct. For instance, you can do a meta-analysis, which I'll explain later on. You can also do what is called attribution analysis, and that's the one which is now quite complicated. How can you ascertain that the change that you see in that particular community can be attributed to the intervention? Taking into consideration that there must be another intervention somewhere working. Now, how can we attribute that this particular change is due to this intervention? So it's quite complicated. Then the contribution analysis is not quite complicated. So we'll look at those things as we go into details. I know it will be difficult, especially if you don't have a research background, it might be complicated, but no matter what, it's supposed to be understood, I believe. Focus of evaluation, I think we looked at this point. It compares the expected or planned targets with achieved results or accomplishment. Then the key questions in evaluation, how would we know we got there? Evaluation focuses on comparing. I think this one we've looked at it, right? So these are just concepts. We haven't even started going into details. We're just trying to dissect what evaluation is. Other key questions that evaluation should address: to what extent have the objective been met, by how much, how, why, what changes in the target group can we associate with or attribute to the program? This is a point that I'll just explain where you can do attribution analysis. Has the program been effective? Has the program been efficient? I talked about balancing the two, right? Where we talk about balancing efficiency and effectiveness. So we will do a cost-effective analysis, then we'll also do a cost-benefit analysis. So we'll go deeper than we are just looking at these concepts. Domains under evaluation, there could be a need assessment. Need assessment can be equivalent to what? to baseline survey, right? Do we agree? Hello? The need for the program, need assessment. Is it true that need assessment can be not necessarily equivalent to baseline, but it's related to baseline? We agree, right? Then there can be a program design, then you look at what? Program design, that's why now we are talking about a formative evaluation, because that's a process, isn't it? And you've got its implementation and service delivery. That's the formative, it's still under formative, which is process evaluation. Then you've got its impact or outcome. Then you've got its efficiency, cost, benefit analysis. What to evaluate? So evaluation basically looks at the relevance, effectiveness of the program, how efficient in terms of resource usage. Then it looks at the impact. Then it looks at sustainability. So we'll go in details just beyond these things that we are talking about. Why should you evaluate? Still takes back to what we had in under monitoring accountability, right? To improve the intervention being evaluated, to generate knowledge and learn from the wider application. You are going to be dealing with people. As you are dealing with people, it's likely that you can discover something new on the ground and something that can be of interest, something that can even help you to lobby for more and more and more money, right? So the usage just are the same. I mean, the usage just are the same as monitoring. The difference between monitoring and evaluation. So monitoring here is saying it's a continuous or rather routine collection of data. Then the other one is non-routine. You are not collecting data on a daily basis, no. You just go in a population at a specific point in time, try to collect data, and go. So that's the difference. Then the other one is frequent, then the other one is not frequent because the evaluation is very expensive. Monitoring is focused on the present, what we are doing now and what we are going to do tomorrow and after tomorrow. Then for evaluation, it will focus on whatever that you did. Then focused on outputs. Then the other one will focus on the change, the exact change that a project or rather the program has. It will focus on the change that has been made into the targeted population. You should look at the outcome and the impact. Then the other one, management or staff function. So this will be done by the people that are administering that particular service. But for evaluation, we need to invite external evaluators because when they come in, they are going to be objective rather than subjective. Because if I know you, we work together. I want to defend you. I want to see that that project continues because I'm benefiting somewhere. But someone who is coming from Europe, the one thing that they are going to benefit is the money that they are going to be paid after doing the evaluation. So they will be objective. So they will report what is on the ground. Now, there is this thing called monitoring and evaluation system. So setting up a monitoring and evaluation system is very, very expensive. You need to have more and more and more resources. So we are going to look at the components that are supposed to be there for it to be called a system. We know that a system has got different components and all those components function for a single purpose, right? Just like the human body is. The human body is made of different parts. But all those parts, they function just for a sole purpose that we should continue living and breathing. Even for the M&E system, it's for the it's for a single purpose. All those components that are there. So we are just going to go through those components. So the first component is that you need to have an organizational structure with monitoring and evaluation. We need to have human capacity for M&E. It's talking about the people that are going to be conducting M&E activities, right? It's talking about M&E partnership. Partnership means who is going to be funding these M&E activities. We need to know where we are going to be getting resources. Are we together? We need to have an M&E plan. Very important. We'll look into details for M&E plan. That one we need to, because that's the backbone of evaluation. I mean, that's the backbone of monitoring and evaluation. Without you having the plan, then it means you can't do anything. You need to document everything. Then you're also going to have a costed M&E work plan, which is very simple. The costed, it means you are just going to be attaching the cost to the activity. Let's say sensitization, how much do you need, who is going to be responsible, who is going to be consulted for this particular activity, who is going to approve this particular activity. So this is common to what you usually do, where you are, I don't know if you say a budget, is it a budget? Where you put everything, no, we need this year, we need this year. So that's equivalent to the costed M&E work plan. So here we are saying costed M&E work plan, because now this is into monitoring and evaluation. We don't want it just to sound like an ordinary budget, so we call it a costed M&E work plan. Then you've got M&E advocacy and communication. How are we going to be disseminating the results? Who is going to be doing that? And actually that point relates to the bullet that sits at the bottom, which talks about dissemination and use of data. Routine program monitoring, which we've just actually discussed. The very people that are going to be now doing the implementation, they have to be collecting the same information so that we come and use it as a benchmark, or rather as an input for evaluation. There must be surveillance, survey and surveillance, especially when you start looking at the impacts and the outcome. I did mention that when you start looking at the benefits to the target population, what do you need to do? You need to follow the people in society, ask them the questions, right? So by doing that, it means you are doing survey. It's a survey, you are going to the population, you interview them on basis of your interview guide, you ask them questions, then from there, you go back to your offices. You now start inputting the information in statistical packages like Stata, software, NVivo, Atlas, if you're dealing with qualitative data. Then you begin doing your analysis. Then there must be supervision and data auditing. Very important. The data that we collect from the people, that data is supposed to be of good quality. Otherwise, if we collect poor data, then it means we are going to misinform ourselves as a project. We are going to make decisions based on wrong data. We need to have accurate information. There must be evaluation and research. And this evaluation and research relates to what? It relates to the survey and surveillance. But here the only thing difference is evaluation, because there must be a difference between survey and evaluation. So evaluation, in fact, it relies on a survey and the monitoring aspect. You have the data secondary, then you go into the society, you collect data, that's a survey. Then from there, when you begin doing your evaluation. So in research, depending on the nature of the approach that you've used, it could be quantitative or qualitative. So once you use quantitative, then it means you are dealing with numbers. For that particular approach, is supposed to be objective. It means you as a researcher, you are not supposed to add your opinions. But with evaluation is subjective in nature. At the end of it, you are going to be making judgments yourself. Oh, this didn't work properly because of this and this. So in evaluation, actually, you are also allowed now also to do a little bit of opinions as opposed to pure research. Pure research, you don't have to put in your opinions that the reason why prophets are using the word of God is because of this and this and this. No. But in evaluation now, you can make your personal judgment depending on what you've observed. So you can make now the final judgment. In as much as this has happened, the final thing is this. So evaluation all in all is subjective in nature. Then you are going to have dissemination and the data. You need to have plan. How are you going to be sharing this information? Who needs the information that you are going to be collecting? Are we together? That's why if you as an institution, You don't need the information, you need to think otherwise. Who else needs this information? If there is no one else who is going to use that information, then it means you don't have to even bother yourself to start doing an evaluation for that particular indicator. Then you can focus on other indicators that are going to give you meaningful information that you are going to use to make decisions. Are we together? So all these components constitute what is called an M&E system, and it needs a lot of money. As you've seen there, it's quite complex. So what will happen if at all you are a small organization and you don't have money for this? What will you do? It's a question. What can you do? You are a small organization. You don't have much resources for you to establish a well-functioning monitoring and evaluation system. What can you do? Sorry? We use what? We use the M&E plan. Excellent, sir. So in as much as that for this one, yeah, so it means sometimes we cannot have a full organizational structure for M&E, but at least we need to have the M&E plan right. This thing for human capacity, even at least one person can take care of, because that person is not going to be doing it on a larger scale, just on a smaller scale. More like we will be an internal auditor just to tell us, I think we are not moving in the right direction. Just at least for us to have an idea of what we are doing. But this time around, if at all you go to the American government and they give you the money, they want to see everything here indicated in your plan. That this is how we change between our monitoring and evaluation activity. So all those things from this point to this point, just talking about how you are going to be doing your monitoring and evaluation. They will never give you a grant if you haven't specified this, because they know that now you're going to be telling them about the progress. There is no other way in which you can be telling them about the progress. The only certain way is through you having a well-established M&E system. Then there's the M&E plan. Just from the word plan, it means it's something that you are going to document. So an M&E plan is a concept document that provides a roadmap. To provide the roadmap, because you are going to list down the things that you are going to be doing. Then from there, you are going to be following whatever that you stipulated in your plan. Then there is M&E work plan. An example of an M&E work plan is this, talking about what's the activity, review of clinic records, who is going to be responsible, an M&E officer, when will this start? Start on that particular date, then to end on that particular date, then that's how much that particular activity will cost. So we've exhausted now the concepts that underpins monitoring and evaluation. So I believe tomorrow now we can start digging deep. I'll urge you to read through these concepts so that as we begin, I'll just be saying, let's come up with a goal, then I'll assume that we understand what a goal is. But of course, I'll come and explain again what an output is and what an outcome is so that you understand. Because add the question which we've reserved. Then, okay, let me just close this video. I'm recording this video.